Welcome to PT Live. Today's topic is the warehouse and logistics sector in Poland. It's a very dynamic sector. There's a lot happening. We have with us today two major figures in the sector. Renata Osiecka, who is managing partner at agency and brokerage company, real estate company Immo, which covers all the commercial property sectors and with a particular expertise and focus on the warehouse and logistics sector. And we have Nebil Senman, who is managing partner at Griffin Real Estate. This is the largest and most active investment manager in private equity real estate in Central and Eastern Europe, and also has a very strong commitment to the warehouse and logistics sector.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Of all the commercial property sectors, warehouse and logistics has kind of reputation for being maybe the most boring sector. And I hesitate to say that, but I hate to use that word. This is because maybe everyone can relate to an office and everyone can relate to a hotel and residential, and also, of course, retail, but not many people come in contact with the warehouse and logistics sector. Renata, can you challenge that concept?
Well, it's my 20th year since I'm been working in this sector, so it cannot be boring. But seriously speaking, I think this is kind of an experience where people have. From external point of view, it's probably not a very exciting product in terms of design, but internally, if you have the experience to go into such a building, you can see huge diversity of advanced technology, of different innovation of robotics trying to replace human workforce. So that's one point. It's very advanced sector in terms of technology. Secondly, it's very attractive market. Industrial sector is very attractive for the occupiers, for the investors. It's the third largest in Europe. It's very deep. It's very developing. It's 3 times.
When you say, sorry, the third largest, you mean Poland is the third largest, or Central Eastern Europe?
No. Third largest is Poland is the third largest in Europe.
After UK, Germany?
UK, Germany, that's correct. And so it's very mature, very deep, and it's very interesting. There's a lot of dynamics going on. We have new formats, we have new locations, we have new submarkets. Majority of international occupiers, investors are here, so it's very interesting. And the last but not least, I would say that it's a very difficult asset class which could be replaced by anything else. So we can observe that today the customers' behavior has such an impact on property market that co-sharing, co-living, that this trend have impact on the residential market, on the office market. But in logistics, it was invented decades ago. The whole fundamentals of 3PLs, third-party logistics suppliers, is based on the co-sharing of the cost, co-sharing of equipment, co-sharing of transportation. So it's kind of innovative and I would say innovative and deep market. So I just disagree with your opinion.
Well, I'm glad. I've never heard of co-working or co-sharing in the concept of
this multi-client warehouses are based on this concept, and it was invented, decades ago.
Okay. Nebil, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but last year, ELI company jointly owned by Redefine and Griffin, you purchased 9 logistics parks in Poland for around euro 200 million. And now Griffin plans to, or is investing 800 million euros in building, together with Panattoni, a logistics platform which will operate around 2 million square meters only in Poland. That's a huge commitment. So you obviously have a good feeling about the sector.
Well, look, I would like to add one sentence. Of course, if you look at logistics, it might be less sexy from outside if you go to Hala Kosziki or Q22 or Warsaw Spire. But as you said, it's very interesting if you go into the logistics and you see how, let's say, for instance, in Amazon or Carrefour or Kaufland, let's say, logistic how the systems are working. Having said that, we are managing 9 platforms so far in the real estate sector, and logistic is, I think, for us was a natural place to go, because of course there is a trend of e-commerce and let's say the traditional shopping centers are still there, but that there's a trend to invest or to shop through e-commerce, and let's say the logistic sector is growing phenomenally. So if you look, for instance, the sector was at 10 million stock 2-3 years ago, and it's now heading over 15-16 million in Poland as such. The same also if you look at the investment behavior, right? You have now 1/3 of the investment volume in Europe, which is now executed and transacted in logistics. So investors are, of course, looking for two things. One is yield, of course, and number two is also diversification. From Redefine's perspective, for instance, they are very active in the traditional shopping center through their investment in EPP. Currently, they are still holding over 40% of the company. But investing in logistics for them is a natural hedge against, let's say, the brick-mortar, e-commerce impact on brick and mortar. So this is one thing. The second thing is what we are trying to do is, in the end, for our investors to create leading platforms in the different segments, which we did in EPP with the shopping center, which we are trying also to do with student housing and or resi for rent. But on logistics, you need to be a distant market leader to be able to get a premium, and then also to have more pricing and negotiations power with tenants and so on and so forth. So yes, 1 billion might sound big. As you said, we bought a seed portfolio of 200 million. We have already around 250 million under construction. So we only need 1 million square meters to contract to be around 1 billion.
Because I understand that's equity you're putting in.
No, that's gross asset value. That's the total gross asset value. Is 1 billion on equity will be, let's say, depending on leverage, but 400-500 million. Yeah. We have seen when we set up this platform also together with Redefine, we have been approached by many other investors, which are very interested to invest in logistics, number one, but also in Poland, because the yield spread that you still have between Germany and Poland is around 200-250 bips, and everyone can assess the risk profile between the two countries if this is, let's say, if the spread is not too high. Yeah? As you said, Poland is now included in the EPRA Developed Index, and the reason why our investors like PIMCO, Oaktree, Redefine, and also some others are, let's say, partnering up with us is because they think from the risk yield or from the risk return profile, it's still attractive to be in Poland.
I mean, the point for me was, to some extent, because of course there are always developers, investors who favour a particular country, but it's a lot to put into one country. What for you about Poland stands out? I mean, I know it's a stock question and there's stock answers, but it's interesting if you're putting so much money in.
But it's really, I don't know, if you look at it, don't get me wrong, but putting 300-400 million euros of equity in one country is.
But you're not doing it in other countries, as far as I.
No, we are. Look, for us, I invested over 1.5 billion euros of equity in Germany, right? But one of the reasons why I moved to Poland is that I and joined Griffin was that I could see that the opportunities that you have are much better in Poland than in Germany. Germany is very competitive, yields are very low, and in Poland, let's say, if you look at the transaction market, I think it's 6 billion this year. Yeah. Germany is 10 times of it, so 60 billion, right? And you have 40 million of people in Poland, you have 80 million in Germany. So having said that, there's still let's say, appetite, and I think you still see the growth, right? Mm-hmm. So, and if you look at the different companies also, look, the biggest shopping center player focused on Poland is EPP, and they have a market cap of 1 billion, managing 2 billion of gross asset value. It's small if you compare it to Unibail, Klépierre, EC, and so on. So I think
it's everything in comparison. Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's still the market can grow. And if you ask, for instance, Mark Weiner from Redefine, he's saying the biggest mistake that he did is that he has not invested in Poland 10 years ago, right? To catch up really much higher, let's say, the yield compression, right? Yeah. The point is, if you invest in CEE, I think it's gives better yield perspective compared to, let's say, Western European countries, and Poland has a size. This is, I think, the advantage if you compare to other SEE or CEE countries like Bulgaria, Romania, and so on, has still size and liquidity.
Okay. Well, we'll come. Thanks very much. I mean, it's good to have the perspective of comparing with Germany and other countries. For you, because Renata, you've been in the market for 20 years, but you set up actually Immo 10 years ago, and this year is your anniversary, isn't it? Yeah. And you published a really interesting short report, which was called 10 Changes in 10 Years. But it really does make remarkable reading. I'm just going to read three facts. So 10 years ago, the supply of warehouse space in Poland was 5.1 million. And now, as Nebil said, it's over 15.7 million at the end of 2018. So 3 times bigger. In 2009, 765,000 square meters of warehouse and production space was leased across Poland. In 2018, the figure reached over 4 million square meters. So that's like more than 5 times. And in 2009, the vacancy rate was about 16.3. Today, vacancy rate is at 4.5. And I was attending a conference on warehouse and logistics market about 10 years ago, and the feeling was really depressed. People were saying, well, it was a slow sector, it wasn't really moving. So did you see the massive boom to come, or how did that, has it surprised even you?
I mean, in 2009 we were deeply touched by the crisis, obviously. So there was a high vacancy, high supply of the spec product, and people were not very was not very certain about this sector. But myself, having the previous experience and working in international environment, I could understand easily that there is a huge gap between Poland and Western European countries. So I strongly believed in that sector, and that is why I started Immo with industrial team. And
so you started with a focus on industrial?
Yes, that's correct. And I remember that we kept repeating to the clients, to the occupiers, and to the investors, developers who we were pitching for at that time about obviously that Poland is located at the crossing at the best transportation routes, and it's critical for not only for European Union but also for the Asian trade. And we can see the ring and belt. It's kept repeating, and obviously it was not invented by myself, but it was obvious at that time. The second factor was proximity of Germany, that we kept repeating. We are the closest market, which is the most competitive in terms of the labor force cost, in terms of the labor force regulation, which was much liberal in Poland than in Germany, and obviously other cost effectiveness. So these 2 factors obviously were envisaged by me, by other people as well, and they worked, and we could see this. Today we have around 25% of the export and import from Germany. So these 2 factors were easily to be envisaged, but the real trigger last years was e-commerce, which was not foreseen, I believe, by anyone. And it was golden era for the last 10 years for industrial logistics in Poland. And
will that continue? I mean, Nebil, what do you think? Do you think it's still got, because the increase, again from your report, is like 10 years ago, the share of e-commerce was below 1%, and now it's over 10%. Nebil, do you see that as something which is limitless, or?
No, look, the sky's the limit. No, but my understanding is, if you look at e-commerce, generally speaking, over let's say globally, right? I think growth rates are around 20%, and they're still forecasted to be until 2022-23 at 15, 16, 17%. And I think the same also in Poland. I think the penetration of e-commerce is at 6%, average in Europe is 10, 11. So there's still room to go. It might be that it's like, in the end, like China, the growth might also flatten, but there's still growth. And I think, let's say, traditional retailers, they need more warehouse space also to, let's say, be quicker at the end consumer, and e-commerce will grow, right? The Amazons, I think, you know, there are now 8 Amazons, I think, in Poland, so it's still growing, and there's still, let's say, room to grow. That's what we see. Look, we have in our private equity segment with SMIC, we have also one retailer working, and we see there's still a lot of demand, and they have just constructed a new warehouse facility. So I think it's one of the big drivers, e-commerce, and the other ones, of course, is, as you said, the production, which is moved from countries like Germany to Poland, where you have much more flexibility and qualified people at lower cost.
Okay. What about people have said that the rents in rents in warehouse sector in Poland are specifically quite low. Do you agree with that?
Look, if you compare them just on the headline basis to Germany, yes, they are lower. You know, I think in Poland you had 350, 360. In Germany you had 5 to 6. But in the end, what investors are looking at are really the yields, right? They're looking what is my development yield and what is my market yield and what's the spread that if I'm a developer, can make, or if I'm an end investor, what is the yield that I'm buying for, right? And there, this Poland, even if it's 350, is still attractive because, we are developing, for instance, in our platform, depending on location and vault and so on, we are developing between 8 to 9.5% development yield. And the market yield is, let's say there's a difference of, depending again on the length of the leases, between 200 to 250 bips. And this spread you will not find, or very difficultly find, in Germany. There are cases where you can reach that, but this is, I think,
so it's more about the yield.
Exactly.
Renata, what do you think?
I mean, traditionally, for the last 10 years, the rents were very low, actually, but there were reasons for that. Obviously, there was high vacancy for a long time, but secondly, the cost of delivering product was also very low. So construction costs were very low, and historically, the land supply was high. So there were reasons for that. Now we are facing different situation. The trend is going upwards. So the rents are increasing for the last 2 years, and there are also reasons for that. The construction costs increased for 20% more or less. Labor force increased. The cost of labor costs increased, and the land is more and more limited. So the cost of land is also higher. So that's one reason. The new product is more expensive. But also the old product is expensive because investors who bought the portfolio or the product within the last 24 months, they take the opportunity to have the gain on the rent increase, and this is natural way as well.
Okay. I mean, just to wrap up, both of you operate in different sectors. Renata, you operate across all commercial sectors, and Nebil, Griffin too, but particularly you have a strong student housing platform. I just wonder, I don't know, are there any comparisons between the two? Can you?
No, look, we as Griffin, we try to come, to create, let's say, new platforms, as we did with EPP, as we did with GPRE, where, you had no shopping center platform in Poland, you had no office platform in Poland. And it's the same what we are doing in student housing, or also for Resi for Rent. We are trying to, let's say, put things together, thinking outside of the box and being innovative. Let's say on the student housing, we have currently 1,500 beds and constructing another 500. So we're at 2,000 beds by September. And we have a pipeline of another 1,500. So we are hopefully in 2021, 2022, we are at 3,500 beds. With that, we are the distant clear market leader in Poland. And this is, if you compare it to other players in the UK or in Germany, it's a niche play, right? It's still a gross asset value which is around 100 million. It's not a big play, right? But we like this business. It's a different risk profile. It's very, let's say, the risk is really diversified because normally, you have 500 students per building. So we like that. The second thing is also on Resi for Rent. We have set up now this Resi for Rent platform as a joint venture between PIMCO, Echo, and us. And we are constructing the first 1,200 apartments. Another 1,700 is in permitting phase, and 3,000 are in acquisition phase. So this is a market, for instance, which is not served at all in Poland. You don't have an institutional offer of residential rent.
So the end game is, of course, to sell it off as an institutional product.
Might be. Look, we try first to get the size, let's say, of 5,000 units plus, and then we will see. There might be an exit that we sell it to some German listed residential play like Deutsche Wohnen, Vonovia, and so on. We may also just list it in Warsaw, which it might be also a retail product. But currently, the nice thing on this Resi for Rent is normally private people are renting the apartments, and we can offer the same, let's say, rents or comparable rents, but with much better services. We can give Wi-Fi in the entire building. People are also, the tenants have more security because they will not have the risk to be evicted due to the fact that eventually some family members should move in and so on and so forth. But look, we created in Germany, we created Deutsche Wohnen, the market leader, when I was with Oak Tree at that time. They're managing now over 150,000 apartments. And in Poland, there's nobody who has meaningful size. Yeah.
Well, everyone's watching you, that's for sure, to see how things go. So it's exciting. Sure. Renata, I mean, this is a very broad question to compare sectors. So in the office sector, we've seen a lot of Asian investors looking at Poland and Central Europe. Is that the same in logistics? Are they also interested?
Oh yes, the 20% of the total stock belong to Asian investors now, and we started from logistic industry, so I will continue with that. And I would say for investors, it's the prime time. It's a very mature market, very international, very liquid. Last year it was traded 1.8 milliard euro in logistics sector in Poland. So we have majority, maybe not all, but majority of international occupiers, international investors in this sector. The leases are longer. The tenants, there's deep market in terms of the tenants.
Why are the leases longer?
I mean, the construction costs are higher, so the tenants want to secure longer leases today with, let's say, medium rents, not the highest, because
it's good for the developer and the owner as well to have a long lease.
Yeah, I would say for everybody it is kind of a security. So the leases are more secure than in the past, and the trend with the upward increasing rents is also positive for investors, or maybe less positive for occupiers. But in general, I mean, the market is very interesting for investors. And every day we have the call for the product. There's not enough on the market, so.
Well, I have to, just for people watching, nothing is all perfect. So just in a nutshell, last thing, what can be better? What could be improved?
I mean, it's not improved, but what we see some kind of a limitation in terms of the labor force in Poland. So this is kind of a red flag. And obviously we are expecting slowdown. We are in the late cycle now, so the slowdown in Germany, which is prognosed, probably will not help. But I believe there's some kind of airbag cushion for some slower impact, which is e-commerce and also the cost effectiveness. So in the crisis, everybody looks for cost effectiveness. So hopefully, German market will look in the same way. But these are my positive explanation. But
it sounds almost like logistics warehouse is almost recession-proof. Nebil, is that?
Look, I agree. In the end, labor force is a big constraint in Poland. Unemployment is even below now the German unemployment rate. So this is a big point. And look, if there is a global recession or let's say a slowdown, this will have impact on, I think, all asset classes. I don't, maybe residential is different because, but still, yeah, it will have impact on offices and retail and on logistic indirectly as well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think we've shown that warehouse and logistics is not a boring sector. So it sounds, in fact, very exciting. So thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you.